Welcome to the Deacs.AI podcast, where Wake Forest innovators unpack the real-world magic of artificial intelligence through candid conversations. I'm Michael Ferrari.
I'm Ryan Scholl.
Please join us as we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming work across campus, one fascinating story at a time. Get ready to discover the human side of technological innovation. On this episode, we are joined by Will Tomlinson, Associate Director of IT Infrastructure at Wake Forest University. Please join us as we speak with Will about how artificial intelligence is ever-growing, powerful, and at the end of the day, concerning. While AI is certainly changing the world as we know it in a lot of exciting ways, it still poses many serious questions that have yet to be answered.
I am honored that I was even considered as somebody. I mean, you've had what, 3 guests and you've already run out?
We're here today with Will Tomlinson. It's one of our colleagues in information systems. Will, I have no idea what your title is. Can you at least introduce yourself?
I knew you were going to ask me that question, and I still I trip over it every time. So I'm just going to say I'm Associate Director of Infrastructure, and we're just going to leave it at that. I'm responsible for our AWS infrastructure, our data center that's on campus, Windows, Linux, and databases. So a lot of the stuff that keeps the lights on at the university.
So it's fair to say you know something about technology.
I have been doing this my entire life, yes.
Okay. So at least you can fool us.
I can fool you. Yeah.
Perfect. So have you studied AI, or were you aware of AI for a while? What is your history with AI and maybe this new generative AI fad?
Yeah, so I took an online course a while ago from Stanford University, and I can't remember the professor's name, but he's pretty famous in this space, and learned a little bit about machine learning and neural networks and how those sort of work under the covers. But I didn't really do anything more beyond that. It was more just a curiosity. And then I really started to become aware of AI, like the generative AI and a lot of these like really, I'd call them like modern AI. Because we've had AI, right? I mean, AI has been, this is not necessarily some new thing.
And what people term as AI.
Right.
That's changed.
So when I think we should probably clarify that here. Like if we're talking about AI, I'm talking about like generative AI, I'm talking about large language models. I'm not talking about, the traditional, gradient descent type AI. So anyway, it was probably around like 2016 or so. That's around the time that AlphaGo came out. And that was the really strong AI that beat the world's best Go player. If you're not familiar with Go, it's kind of it's a game that originated in China millennia ago, literal millennia ago. It's a very popular strategy game in Japan, Korea, China. And for a long time, it was thought that these AIs would not be able to beat professional players for decades to come, right? We'd seen the Deep Blue thing happen with Garry Kasparov, and that was, kind of groundbreaking when it comes to AI. But Go was considered to be just, too complex, too abstract, So when AlphaGo hit the scene and just beat the top player by a long shot, I mean, it wasn't even close. That really woke me up to this idea that like, hey, things are changing, and the AI space is becoming significantly stronger. And I think that was like right around the same time maybe as in ChatGPT.
That story is fascinating. You can either Google it or ask one of the AIs to tell you a story. But AI thought of all these moves that humans would never have thought of. And they used these strategies that no human player had used.
Right.
And so when the AI researchers watched what AlphaGo was doing, it blew their mind, because this was not something that the humans had trained it on. It learned from itself.
Right. So the first iteration of AlphaGo, the one that beat Lee Sedol in 2016, that was trained on professional games. And then the next iteration that came out, this is all coming out of Google's DeepMind, by the way. The next iteration of it, AlphaGo 0, was not trained on human games at all. It was trained through random play. So essentially, it started with this blank neural network, no weights, and weights are kind of like the brains of an AI, like the memories or whatever you want to call it. And it just sort of randomly played, and then had a sort of an evaluation function at the end to see like, hey, who's ahead, who's behind. And it played, billions of games. I mean, I'm not sure the exact number, but it was a lot. And what's really interesting about that was that not only was it incredibly strong, it was better than all the professional players, but it also had rediscovered a lot of the strategies that human players had discovered, which is amazing. Like, that's mind-boggling, right? Like, you think of this is like a very human thing. We've been playing this game for as long as recorded human history.
Yeah.
And this AI comes along without any knowledge of that and learns all the things that we learned over the course of 5,000 years of play, right? I mean, maybe it's not that long. We really don't even know when it started. And so that was fascinating to me. The fact that it not only beats, but human players, it rediscovered a lot of the strategies that we had already discovered. And then, like you said, it discovered new strategies that human players had not seen. And it has completely, fundamentally changed the way that people play Go now, where moves that up until 2016 were considered like, these are the strongest moves, this is the best way to play. All of that's out the window. Yeah. People are doing things that mimic the robots.
Exactly.
So a large portion of that is just like, I guess this is the strong thing to do. Like, I don't know what's really good about this move versus that move, but all of the professionals have started to adopt that and try to take on those strategies, which is just, I don't know. That is one of the more compelling stories about how AI has sort of risen.
And so you said that kind of piqued your interest.
Yeah, that was it. Like, that was something's different, right? The AI is not just human programmed and a nice, interesting algorithm. That's when, these neural networks started to become really useful, which we've had that for forever. Like, that's been around since the time of, I don't know if you remember scanning documents and using OCR to recognize characters. Like, that's a neural network, right? Just taking this to a much grander scale and applying it in much larger problem set. So yeah, that was really the aha moment. And then I think ChatGPT wasn't too far along behind that, and I kind of just picked that up through social media. I'm kind of a prolific poster on Reddit.
Oh, you're that guy.
Yeah, I'm that guy. Yeah, you gotta watch out for the.
I was wondering who I kept reading on Reddit.
Yeah, so when stories started to kind of crop up on Reddit about ChatGPT and this just amazing thing that ChatGPT could do, it wasn't but maybe 2 or so weeks after I started seeing those that I went and found it and started playing.
Do you remember roughly what version that was?
No,
3.0?
It was right after the major release, the first public.
So I think that everybody talks about the ChatGPT moment. That was November of 2022. I think. At that time, ChatGPT or GPT 3.5 was released, and some of the early adopters kind of knew about it with 3.0.
This would have been probably the 3.0, because I remember the release of 3.5. Yeah, it was fascinating what you could get it to do, and I was having fun. I was giving it bedtime stories for my kids. I was like, oh, tell me what you want for your bedtime story, and then the ChatGPT would crank out this just amazing bedtime story. Or my absolute favorite creative writing prompt was, I have a friend who's a vegan, and I'm always, we're always kind of ribbing each other for our difference in opinion about diets. And I gave it this story of, I was like, okay, write a fun, heartwarming story about vegans that try to convince cannibals to adopt a plant-based lifestyle. And honestly, I don't think I could have come up with that twist myself if I had tried it. The end result of all this was that the cannibals, they ate the vegans, but they were so impressed by the flavor that they decided that there must be something to this plant-based diet after all, and so that was what convinced them.
We have a colleague that I'd like to share that story.
He's the one that I shared it with. I can assure you.
Fantastic.
I know who you're talking.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I can relate to the what you were saying. There's just something different about it now, because I think it's exactly like what you were saying before, clearing up what AI is. There's a huge difference with what someone might view as AI, where you go to, I don't know, the DMV, and it's like, why are you, what are you looking for in the chat? And you're like, I don't know, registration. It's like, you could make something like that in Python in no time. So that's what I expected to see when I went there. And then, so the more I've gotten into it, obviously, and then that moment you said, it was same thing here. I was like, okay, this is much different than I thought.
I was kind of expecting an Alexa type intelligence, right? The Amazon Echo devices, which have not gotten any smarter since. I think they're actually worse.
Yeah.
That was sort of what I was expecting. Like you said, yeah, you could program that in Python code, right? Yeah. And we've had that type of thing for a long time. Mm-hmm. These chat agents and the Turing test was invented a long time ago. And oftentimes, you would hear these, quote unquote breakthroughs about passing the Turing test, and none of them were really all that convincing to me, because all you had to do was go off script for just a second. But the LLMs definitely passed that Turing test. Like if it was prompted correctly, I feel like, not to be quite so helpful and knowledgeable, but to give more terse responses like a human, like it would be very difficult to tell the difference at this point, if not impossible.
As somebody who got in a little early and jumped in, and you are going to make up this word, techno-curious.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
you like technology, you play around with it, and you've probably evolved in your Gen AI usage as it's got. What are some of your favorite uses in work and outside of work?
Yeah. So at work, well, I'll tell on myself a little bit here. One of the first times I really used it for any kind of concrete use case at work was for the team that I manage. I have 10 people under me that I needed to write 10 really good performance reviews for, and that's a lot of work to come up with all of this accomplishments over the course of their time that year and my feedback. And so I'm not saying that I used the AI to just hallucinate some things, put it in a form. What I did was I took kind of an incomplete thoughts, just a big list of this person did this person excelled at this, they did this, I think they should work on that. I put all of that into at the time we didn't have any AI tools available to us, and I just kind of anonymized it and said, tell me, come up with a creative performance appraisal for this person, and here are the qualities that I want to highlight. And then I workshopped with the AI back and forth and said, well, okay, that's not true. It was more like this. I kind of clarified any of the points that needed to be clarified. And then I put that in as a performance appraisal, and it worked incredibly well. It saved me a lot of time, and it allowed me to take, sort of the core ideas of what I was trying to highlight and put that in a more formalized format that is typically just busy work. It doesn't really add a lot to the value of the conversation. And I encouraged my employees to do the same thing. I said, you don't necessarily need to go and just handwrite every single one of these things. You can put it into an AI, have it come up with a couple nice paragraphs. Well, as long as it's not actually hallucinating, making things up.
Yeah.
Like that's, I think, a perfectly acceptable reason to use AI. It saves us time and allows us to get back to what we're supposed to be working on, which is keeping the servers running, keeping everything patched. This is something that we have to do. It adds value, but we shouldn't be knocking ourselves out trying to workshop, the wording of a sentence that we're going to put in a performance appraisal. I don't think that adds a lot of value. So that's where something like AI was pretty useful early on. And since then, I've done, we do a lot of automation. So coding, some of the people that I work with weren't very strong PowerShell coders before and needed to update some scripts to match with, new version of VMware that was released. And within the course of an afternoon, was able to come up with a PowerShell script that does exactly what he needed to do. Sends out an email, report every Monday saying here are the highlights from our environment.
Do you have a favorite tool you use for coding?
I go back and forth. It's
because it changes every day.
Yeah, well, I like to. I use all different ones because I kind of want to get a sampling of what's good, which one's better at what, and it really just depends.
Michael's discussed numerous times about using the different tools. Grok and ChatGPT. Yeah. And what still blows my mind is Claude's supposed to be the best. And he still hasn't used that one.
Grok, I haven't used Claude yet, but Grok, their newest release, I have to give it credit. It's the best one I've used so far. I had an idea for something I wanted to use on a project, and ChatGPT was helping me get there a bit, but was struggling. I put it in Grok, first try, came right out. It was no problem at all. Faster, I've had a good luck with it so far.
Ironically, I did something the other day with Google Apps Script. Yeah. I thought, let's go to Gemini for that. Yeah. No, ChatGPT did it better.
Yeah. They do have a better coding interface, I think. If you ask it to put something out, it comes back in a little bit more of a digestible format. But it's interesting you said Grok is better, or Claude is supposed to be the best, or Llama, whatever model you want to use. And I think that's one of the challenges that we're all facing right now is how do you even determine which one is best? Because it's such an amorphous thing.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. The way I kind of view it, for my opinion, for some context, is I'd noticed I would work with ChatGPT sometimes on something really simple. So for instance, I was making a video about AI and I wanted to show an example of using it for coding. So I was all right, what's a really, really simple example? A table. So I asked it hey, can you give me a table that has three rows. The first one is 2 columns. The next one is 1. Et cetera.
Right.
It just couldn't do it. So in my opinion, that I was like, okay, there needs to be some work here. Meanwhile, something like that I've plugged in something way more, just a proof of concept idea I had into Grok, and there's been times it was 100% there, and then there's been other times where it got close, and I can massage it a bit and get it to where I needed it to. But yeah, so that some very simple issues with ChatGPT are what specifically made me check elsewhere.
Yeah. My advice to people is most of these LLMs are 85% similar.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you're going on a deep dive into something,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was waiting for the deep dive.
unless you're going really deep into something, pick a tool.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about going back and forth between them. Those are for the experts.
Yeah.
Pick your favorite tool. Now, I will put on my security hat, my public service announcement. If you're using Wake Forest data, we do recommend using Gemini or Copilot because we have big consumer data protection.
Yeah.
But otherwise, how do you pick, right? If these tools are so similar, use Llama if you like it. Use ChatGPT, use Gemini, use Grok, use Claude. Not gonna
use them all and compare them.
Yeah.
And especially before you go out and buy a license for it, if you're gonna absolutely take it upon yourself to do that.
Yeah.
It also depends on how you prompt it. I'm sure like if you had taken the same prompt and put it into 5 different LLMs, you're gonna get 5 different responses, and in some cases they're gonna be better. Some cases they're gonna be worse. And if you change that prompt, you're gonna get different.
That's a good reason to if you do find one that you seem to like sticking with it, is you do get a bit better of a feel for it. I know what'll trip it up. I know, sometimes I'll see that a project will start regressing if I'm, making adjustments to it. So it's kind of like, okay, I know this one, it kind of can lose the thread a little bit. So you do learn the intricacies. So that's a good part about picking a primary.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges you see with, especially this new topic?
All right, here we go. Yeah, you've activated my trap card. All right, so I don't even know if that reference makes sense. The people in the comments can tell us. Yeah, man. I said this is where I say I think generative AI is amazing, but sometimes I really hate it. And I think the concern that I have, if I sort of had to boil it all down into just one kind of core idea, is that it feels like the collective, not just information systems, not just Wake Forest University, but I mean like all of society, we are jumping into this AI thing head first, and we don't even know how deep the water is. And it stands as probably the most striking example, in my opinion, of technology that can do tremendous good, but also tremendous harm. And I would say it's almost like the computer science equivalent of discovering fission, right?
Yeah.
We can do incredible things with fission, right? We can generate power. We've discovered all kinds of things about the quantum realm as a result of some of those discoveries. But we've also made the most terrifying weapons in human history, and now possess the firepower to destroy the entire planet as a result. And I think AI has a very similar capability if it gets strong enough, and we know it will. I mean, we haven't even talked about like quantum computing and how that's going to come into play in future AI advances. I'm sure it's being talked about now. And, we're talking about LLMs, right? These are mostly, you prompt it, you get some results back. There are now features in AIs where you can actually prompt it and can take actions on your behalf, call those agentic AIs, right? Those are starting to hit the scene now. And then really the holy grail of AI is this artificial general intelligence, where it can sort of act on its own, and has human-like reasoning capability and power. And those, they're not here today. And I don't want to be all doom and gloom about it. So, it's possible that we're further away than we think we are on AGI. But a lot of the experts in the industry, people that know more than I do, certainly about it, believe it's, within the decade that we're going to see AGI. And I am terribly concerned that we are not considering the ramifications on people's livelihoods, on what this is going to do to us as a society, and that we're not taking steps now to protect the human creative output.
So there are pundits all over the AI world who discuss this topic. There are some who are very high on regulatory actions, and some who want freedom of expression and let's take off the guardrails because we need progress. So to substitute, what you do is you go big on AI literacy. Where do you fall on that scale?
Regulations, 100%. And I don't think taking the guardrails off is a really good idea. I mean, we
will regulations stifle progress?
What's progress? Like what are we getting out of this that we don't get with well-regulated industry? Because let's say we were able to replace everybody's. I mean, and there are real industries where this is happening right now, not 10 years from now. We're talking about digital creators who are contracted to produce artwork for companies, right? Their work has been used to train the AI, and they're some of the people that are suffering the most from this output of artificial intelligence and being able to generate images. Because it's devaluing their skill set. So let's say we put whole industries out of business, people that make their livelihood from these. What progress is that, right? I don't feel like we are set up right now as a society in a way where we can handle something like that, right? I'm concerned that it's going to concentrate the power into the hands of the people that control the technology and not the people whose work it was used to train these AIs, right? Like it was my work to train, that was used to train AI. For example, I mentioned earlier, I was a prolific poster on Reddit. Well, Reddit data is one of the reasons why you heard about putting glue on pizza.
If you've been on Grok, yep.
Yeah.
Reddit and Twitter.
Right. So, I didn't write that. I didn't write my responses to people's questions on Reddit to enrich billion-dollar tech companies. I wrote that to help other people. And I know there's like, this is a big landmine.
Yeah.
But
I'm setting you up for some more questions.
Okay, good. So, that I put it out there, and I recognize that somewhere in the terms of service, I'm sure buried deep in there, I had already, absolved any right that I had to my creative work there, right? Mm-hmm. Which is part of the reason why I've moved a lot of my posts and content to my own blog where I have a copyright. And I don't think that our copyright law and I don't think like a lot of these use cases were even anticipated when people were posting and when people were making these comments on Reddit and whatnot. So it does feel a little bit like, a lot of the work that I've put into this is being gobbled up, used to train AI and then sold back to me, right? At a premium to get, my own creative output back. And I think a lot of the people that are even more impacted by this, like artists and whatnot, they're getting it even worse, right?
So I'm going to make an easy comparison here. This is the comparison that people use all the time. How do you see your argument as any different than the Luddite argument? I mean, why is it any different than us still having people weaving cloths by hand using, needle and thread rather than the invention of the weaving?
Sure. Yeah. That is one of the things that I struggled with when I was sort of thinking about this argument that I'm making here is that, AI is a lot like other technologies that have disrupted industries in the past. I mean, you have, the industrialization of America, right? Like the world that changed a lot of things that put a lot of people out of work that were normally working in some field. But what I think is different here is that this stands to replace human thought, and that is fundamentally different from having a new tool to do a job, right? Like if I have, let's say I'm a woodworker, and I'm all into using hand planes, and that's what I've built my entire career on. And then all of a sudden we have like these machines that can do all of that stuff for me. Cool. Now you could get left behind. You could stick with your hand planes, and your work output would be lower than somebody else who has the machines that can make these tools. But it's still a tool, right? You can start using that tool, and you can match that creative output. Where I think the danger of AI comes in is that, it doesn't need our input anymore, right? At some point, it's not going to need our input. At some point, our technical skill is not going to be required for a lot of this work. And that's where I think we run the danger if we don't make an active, if we don't take proactive steps to protect like the human element. I think AI is an amazing tool when it's used as a tool, but and it's used to augment people's own creativity, creative work. Like if you have a digital creator that can use, I'm sure you've seen some of the new stuff that's in like Photoshop, right? Where you can like paint out a background without having to jump through all the hoops that you normally would have to jump through to do like the lasso select and cloning and all this other stuff, right?
Like you could get, if you're starting a landscaping business tomorrow, you could go in there and have possibly a pretty decent logo in about like 10 seconds too. Right. So stuff like that.
Yeah. But I mean, that's something that I think is, we're at that point right now, it feels like, where AI is at this sweet spot of not capable of doing everything by itself yet, and not capable of fully replacing human output, and strong enough that it can really like meaningfully impact us and help us, produce, new work. It does feel like if we get to the point where we are no longer using it as an augmentation and we're starting to use it to automate human tasks, that's when we run the danger of really. And I think that's going to take, business leaders. It's going to take, people like us to say like, hey, this is not what we want out of this tool, to get to that point, right?
What started making me a little concerned on that front is there's several instances now where you see something happen in some industry, and it doesn't matter whether you agree with the workers or don't. I'm just saying, like, say when there was that like dock or longshoreman or whatever strike, first thing you hear, replace them with AI. So it's like so easy, get it automated, and it's like I feel like what you were saying, like that is scary, and then it's easy to say when it doesn't impact you, but then it keeps going, and then it snowballs, and then before you know it, it's, hey, maybe you supported that when it was the dock workers, but now now they're doing it to you,
Right, this is you might be a paralegal. We might not need that anymore. And it's a really conflicting thing, because like you said, I love technology. I love playing with technology. I like putting my hands on this stuff, but at the same time, it's like every time I see, what it can do, the more it feels like, hey, this is becoming a little bit more than what I actually want out of it.
Yeah. Sorry, but like, that's why, like, I really like, it's very simple, but what you said is just like, it's different, because I'm a huge fan of technology myself as well. And that's always what I come back to is it feels different. There's something different about it this time.
It's intelligent to the point where it's hard to even define what it means to be intelligent.
Yeah.
Right.
So Ethan Mollick says, if AI does not advance at all, it'll take us at least 10 years to realize all the capabilities it has. Now, just at this current level, which his other famous statement is, the AI that you're using now will be the worst AI you ever use. So given the state it is now, I think we would like it to get better and improve. But if we don't give it access to new data and new training, how does it improve?
That's a good question. I don't know how much I do want it to. I mean, I'll couch that with like, I don't want to stifle progress. I am just concerned that we aren't considering the ethical problems with it. And if we're not giving it new data, we're not feeding it new data. Maybe these companies that are trying to get that data need to own up to the fact that they build these technology, they build these tools off the backs of millions of people whose creative output has been absorbed into these LLMs.
Is it more of an ethical question for you or a financial question? What if you were compensated?
Yeah, I think I put that in the bottom of one of my posts was, you owe me money. You know what I mean? Like, you're building these technologies. NVIDIA shot up from wherever they were to like the second most valuable company in the world, and just they're not number one already. Where is that?
Yeah,
right. I mean,
if a song is too similar to another song, it's just a note or two off, people get sued for millions of dollars and stuff. And it seems kind of similar here to where like what you were saying. It's like,
so is this information not out there under fair use, and information is not free?
See, I take issue with that. I don't think it is fair use. I think a lot of it's not fair use. And
you think that information should be, for lack of a better term, copyright protected?
Yeah, I think we don't have the language to protect ourselves in copyright law right now. And this is us jumping in before we see how deep the pool is, right? We don't have legal protections. We don't have like any kind of regulation around this because it is so new. Nobody knows anything about it. I'm not saying stop. I'm saying we need to pump the brakes and like consider, what sort of impacts these are going to have and find ways to mitigate those impacts so that people aren't hurt by it.
What if AI can help those people who are hurt and upskill their lives, upskill their creativity, where, like you said, it takes away those menial tasks,
right,
and now unlocks more time for you. So you can focus on that stuff, as you said before, you should be doing, keeping the servers going. So in that sense, it doesn't take away your job, but it takes away those tasks and allow you to focus on something else.
Yeah, but I've also heard that argument before, where like we invent labor saving devices, and yet we still do exactly the same amount of work. Like we're always okay, cool. Now I have this free time. What else are we going to do? We're just going to have to do more.
That's really ironic. You should say that because new reports came out and said, "What are you doing with that 20% extra time you saved?" And people are admitting, I'm not doing 20% more work.
I mean, in that vein, if I'm being honest, like I actually feel like the time I save has been beneficial. It's let me work on other projects that I was interested in. It's let me put together some real early concepts for projects that I thought could be useful at work, and some of them moved forward. So, I mean, yeah, just to like push or to add to that, like I kind of feel like I do see the benefit from the time being saved.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's an amazing tool if we can use it to augment our output. I just do worry that like that's not where it's going to stay. We've shown time and time again throughout human history that we are not capable of responsibly using new technologies like this.
Yeah.
And I think that there is going to be a backlash as a result. We've made these mistakes before.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with it or not, like right now, there's a kind of an undercurrent, and it may not even be an undercurrent in American society where people are, really worried about offshoring manufacturing. And I just kind of want to say, like, if that's something that a lot of people are concerned about right now, this has the same kind of echoes of doing that, right? Are we going to make that same mistake again, or are we going to try to find ways to more responsibly use this? Because I don't want to be the Luddite. I don't want to be the guy that says don't use AI. Like, we should be using AI. It can do some really amazing things. We just need to be careful about it. We need to consider what we're using it for, and what, more importantly, we don't use it for.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned this. I was talking to somebody about it. Like I've actively stopped using like the self-checkouts, for example, at grocery stores, because I just don't like the experience. I want to talk to a person, and I don't want to put somebody in a position where their job that they rely on to make their livelihood is replaced by some arguably worse experience anyway.
Yeah.
Like a self-checkout line, or I worry about that for our students here. Like we've talked a little bit about in some meetings about using AI, like AI tutors and things like that. And I think that's great. Like being able to do that is another wonderful use case of AI. But I do worry that some of the danger of like kind of going all in on that is that we lose what it means to come here to Wake Forest University. And this is a prestigious university. I think of it very highly. I love the fact that I work here. It gives me great pride, because I believe in the mission of the university, which, our motto is pro humanitate, for humanity, right? And I think that humanitate part is critical, right? I come here, if I'm a student, to talk to passionate people who have made their lives, by studying their particular field, right? These people have dedicated their lives to becoming a physics professor, whatever it is. And I want to talk to those people. They inspire me. They make me want to be better. And I think that in-person experience that you get from going to college cannot be replaced. You know, if I wanted that, I could go to, University of Phoenix online and talk to an AI tutor. I would come here because I want the in-person experience. I want to talk to faculty. I want to be inspired by faculty. I think we should use AI. We should help our students understand how to navigate these new waters of an AI future. But we shouldn't lose that fundamental piece that this is the human experience that we want.
You've touched on a topic, and it's a big topic, that the potential loss of that interpersonal connection. And then you very nicely did a deep dive into our situation on campus in this higher education learning environment. Now, I'm going to throw this thought at you. What if AI can actually increase those personal engagements by removing some of the tasks or some of the learning that takes away the time? So now you have that extra time for those personal engagements, whereas in the past, you may have been stuck doing something that took more time. You were potentially had to read a chapter 6 times in a book. You could not engage with people. Just to throw a counterpoint to your argument, sure, that this could actually increase that personalization, and we could spend more time with people because the AI is freeing us up.
Yeah, I mean, here you're talking about responsible use of AI again, which is what I'm advocating for, right?
If I could just add to this real quick, because this is a thing I think about a lot specifically on this topic, is I'm apprehensive that would work because you would think smartphones would have done that. We would increase communication more than ever. You know, like, yes, you can send a text and all that, but if anything, I feel like, what you were saying, like that interpersonal skill that, I don't know, whatever you would call it, sense of community or whatever, like, I feel like it's a lessened. And I feel like that's why I'm apprehensive that AI could do that, because every step of the way, from what I've seen with technology, it never goes that way.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point, Ryan. I think it does have the potential to do that. And it just kind of boils down to us, having to be deliberate about where we use it and where we don't use it. And I don't want it to be the replacement for a TA. I don't want it to be a replacement for office hours. I don't want it to be a replacement for any kind of, interaction that you would get in the library with a study group. Like, those things I think are valuable, and an AI can't necessarily replace it. If you are struggling and you need help and AI can help you, that's awesome. I think that's wonderful. And I've used it. I'll give you another use case that I've had, so for writing an essay, right? Mm-hmm. I like to write essays. I used Google's Gemini, and I created a gem, which is, if you're not familiar with the gems and what gems do, it's you basically just you give it a prompt. You say, here's what you're supposed to do. Here's how I want you to do it. And then you can interact with it. So it's kind of like you're imbuing your AI with a personality, particularly.
It's also a synonym for a custom GPT.
Yeah. Okay.
Or potentially just a prompt you can reuse over and over again, like a saved.
Yeah. So my saved prompt for this essay writing gem was that I wanted it to be argumentative. Your job.
You could have just come up.
Yeah. And this is better. Hey, this is a person. Yeah, this is a person. I'm enjoying this.
Until I pull
See, you know what? That's right. AI is bringing people together.
Yeah, okay. He's nailed it. All right.
I'm going to bring up voice mode in a minute, and you're going to argue with Gemini.
Checkmate. No, I told it to be argumentative, to don't agree with me unless my premise is logically sound, to rate the points that I'm making in order, and give them a score between 1 and 5. Like 5 being like unassailable, 1 being worthless argument. Don't ever try that again, right? And then I wrote my article all by myself. I wrote my essay, and then I gave it to the AI, and it gave me back a whole bunch of not suggestions. I also told it not to give me any suggestions. I don't want you to suggest solutions. Your job is just to argue with me about what I'm saying. And so I went through several iterations of that, and I like to highlight this. I wanted to highlight this because I felt like this kind of exemplifies a use of AI where it's augmenting, but it's not doing the work for me. It's allowing me to use my own creative voice, because it helps me strengthen my arguments. It helps me find the flaws in my logical, whatever logical argument I'm trying to make. But it's not telling me what to do. It's not telling me how to finish it. I have to go back and say, okay, I'm going to argue my point. Here's why I think you're wrong. And then I can use that to bolster my essay. And I found that to be incredibly useful because it still allowed me to keep but it also acted as though, it acted as a person that was incredibly interested in the topic and wanted to just poke holes in every single argument that I made, right? That's hard to find. Like, I can't do that. As a student, I'm not going to necessarily be able to find another student that's willing to dedicate 2 or 3 hours of their time to help me poke holes in my essay art.
Right. So do you feel that your final product was improved?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it was, it was still mine. It was still all my work. I never took, I never copied and pasted what was in my output into my essay. I just used it as okay, well, yeah, that's a good point. Here's why I think it's wrong. And then I modified my essay to match.
Can I give you a suggestion?
Sure.
I have done something similar with a custom gem. What I've done is I've created a focus group. So multiple people. And I've submitted actually versions of our podcast. I've submitted other creative works, whether it's an email or a paper I've written. And I've made multiple personalities inside of that custom gem to see how different people. Now, you gave yours a very specific personality and you had this great back and forth with it. Not saying what I did was better, is a different approach. I had a whole different focus group. Sometimes they agreed, sometimes they didn't. And it's a little weird for me sometimes because I had 7 people giving me input and I'm like, wait, I have to remember this is AI.
I feel like I would find one of those personalities that I was like, they're right, and all the rest of you are just wrong.
But what I did for that one was I took a university setting.
Yeah.
And I said, give me an admissions counselor who's 30 years old, a male. So I built a personality for each of them. Give me somebody who works in the finance department who's 46, has this, these qualities. And it was interesting how the feedback really did reflect those personalities. So I like to brag about that one because that one worked well.
That's smart. I mean, I think it's a good use of the AI. Again, it's this goes all back to that responsible use of AI. And I feel like I have to make it very clear. Like, I am not and necessarily an AI skeptic as much as probably will get a negative impression from me about AI. I think the only reason that you might come away with that opinion is because that just feels like such a big part of this that we need to talk about, that we just, as a society, we need to reckon with. And I don't feel like that part is being talked about very much. We talk a lot about all the cool things it can do. And I've seen all these incredible things. I could talk ad nauseum about all of the incredible things that AI has done. But what I don't hear too much from the people that are proponents of AI, don't hear too much about hey, we should probably think about how this is going to impact this. We should probably, take a step back and, make sure that our copyright laws protect people and their creative works from, just being scraped by all these different AI chatbots and whatnot. So don't get me wrong. I do think AI is incredible. We especially need to teach our students here how to use it and how to be effective with it.
Yeah.
And help them learn how to augment their own output with it.
Right. So I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to give you some guardrails on this one. I want to know how you feel Wake Forest can and should use these new crop of generative artificial intelligence tools. But I want to hear more from the administrative side or the policy side, not so much what the professor should do in the classroom.
Meaning, so like, what are you looking for? Like, you mean how should we administer? Like, how should we manage AI here, or
should we use it back-end systems? Should we use it to make admissions decisions? Should we use it to run budgets? Should we have it help us write policy?
Boy, that's a tough one.
This is all just warm-up.
Yeah, this is where we haven't even got to the real stuff yet. No. On the administrative side, I do think using AI to write policy can make sense. And I do think using it for identifying trends in our data is also going to make a lot of sense. I don't think it's there yet as far as being able to make decisions for us. I do want humans involved in that decision-making process and not to allow the AI to just sort of indiscriminately decide one way or the other, because it does have this sort of obtuse, maybe obtuse is not the right word, opaque, decision-making logic behind it. And there are some inbuilt biases in in these LLMs that, and we have to recognize, like, this is not, as smart as they seem to be, like, it is still just a glorified text prediction engine.
Do you think there are more biases in an LLM or in a human being?
Probably in a human being, but I just do want to say, like, those biases in a human, I feel like, can be somewhat controlled for more because you understand the personality of the person, and like we've dealt with this for a long time. The LLMs, there are certain hard to detect biases, like you might not necessarily even realize are there because of the way that these things are learning.
And I guess I asked a question, and I'll help your point here. With the human being, you may recognize the biases, know what they are. The LLMs are behind the scenes and programmed in there and might reflect the developer's bias. You may not even know that's in there.
Right. I mean, we had this issue for a long time where, and I think it's been corrected now. But if you ask ChatGPT or Google's Gemini or whoever to come up with a picture of a doctor, almost every time as a man.
If you say a CEO, it's a white male in his 60s.
Right. Now, I tried this before I came here because I wanted to see how this has been addressed. And it appears as though, like, that was corrected for, like, that was controlled for, right? But like, what else is out there? Because this is not really a thinking machine. It does not possess the capacity, at least in my opinion. And somebody better versed in AI and how AI works in general might be able to refute this. But I do feel like it is a text prediction engine. If you look under the covers, what a GPT is, what the transformer part of that, what it does, all of that is sort of what we've already had on our smartphones and even the flip phones of back in the day, where you would start to type a word and it would give you a couple of common suggestions of what might be the next word, right? This is that just supercharged, running on nitromethane, right? It's a very, very strong text prediction engine, but at the end of the day, it's not like actually making those decisions the way that you might think it. It's not that kind of smart, and it's very, very hard to identify like what's the difference. But I do think there is kind of a subtle difference, and I know that I would not trust the AIs that I've worked with to not make egregious errors, because I've seen them make it on even the simplest things that you wouldn't think an LLM would make, this horrible error up. But using that to make decisions that could impact somebody's life, whether they get into college or not, or what numbers they're going to have on their paycheck next month, like I'm not there yet.
Are you not there yet having the AI do it autonomously, or would you be okay if the human was still in the loop and the AI and the human worked together in a partnership?
That's where I am. I'm in the human needs to be in the loop. And I don't know that I ever want to get away from the human, right?
Sure.
I want it to be a tool. I don't want it to be an automation. And I think that's been pretty clear from our conversation. Like, that's not where I want it to be. I want, programmers to be able to focus on challenging tasks and offload, the busy work.
And you're saying no matter like how good it gets, not
how good it gets. Yeah, I really just don't want it. I mean, unless we can get to the point in our society where I can just go ride my bike, for 8 hours a day during the day and just collect a paycheck at the end of the month because the AI is doing the work for me. Okay, if we can get there, that would be the utopian vision of AGI. Is that our society is all the work is offloaded to some AI that does all the busy work that we don't want to do, and we can just enjoy living.
Yeah.
I don't think we're there. And I don't know that that's even possible. Like, that just seems so far-fetched at this point.
Yeah.
So maybe we can meet in the middle somewhere.
That seems like a great ending point, that we're going to meet in the middle.
Of the ring. No.
The cage match. Me versus AI. Let's go. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah. You keep saying that.
The deep dive.
I'm gonna get Notebook LM to replace your job, right? They already do. I know, but they lose the thread. There's so many times I've listened to the Notebook LM podcast where it's like, and if you'll just remember back to that time, and I'm like, no, you didn't say that.
Thank you for listening to the Deacs.AI podcast, where Wake Forest innovators unpack the real-world magic of artificial intelligence through candid conversations. We hope you'll continue to join us as we explore how AI is transforming work across campus, one fascinating story at a time.